The screen flickered in the dim-lit war room, casting cold, blue shadows across the faces of the highest-ranking officials of the Terran Coalition. They sat, stiff and silent, eyes fixed on the footage that was projected before them. It wasn't just a recording, it was live. The alien invasion force had arrived. On the screen, a barren landscape, scarred by war, stretched out like a corpse. The ground was cracked, jagged, blackened by the firestorms that had ravaged it. Distant explosions reverberated through the footage, but the most disturbing thing about it was the unnatural stillness. The alien ships hovered in the sky, their sleek, obsidian surfaces reflecting the burning atmosphere below. Not a single Terran had been seen alive. In the center of the room stood Captain Reza Albright, his face hidden in the shadows but his eyes wide and sharp, every inch of his mind focused on the scene before him. The others sat frozen, transfixed by the alien force invading their homeworld. They could only watch as their last hopes seemed to burn before their eyes. But Reza, though tense, was far from defeated. He'd seen worse. He'd been through worse. The footage shifted, and the camera zoomed in on a human soldier lying motionless in the dirt. The image of a Terran face, battered and bloodied, triggered something in Reza, a deep, primal memory. He knew that soldier. That was Sergeant Mary Nash, one of his squadmates, now nothing more than a body left for the enemy to trample. He could almost hear her voice. "If you die before me, Captain, I'll haunt your ass for the rest of your life." He blinked, a bitter smile tugging at the corner of his mouth as the rest of the room murmured among themselves, a chorus of helpless murmurs. A voice interrupted the stillness. "Captain Albright, do you have any insights? Your field experience is unparalleled. You've seen the brutality of the aliens firsthand." Reza looked up. Commander Alana Pierce, his superior, stood before him, her expression unreadable but edged with the weight of their shared history. She trusted him, but even her trust was trembling. The room waited, and all eyes were on him. Reza's hand clenched the back of a nearby chair. "That footage is just the beginning," he said, his voice cutting through the silence like a blade. "Those bastards. They're testing us. They're watching us. They want us to know they can crush us. They always have, but they've never seen what we can do when we're pushed to the edge." The murmurs stopped. The tension grew thick, the only sound the hum of the projection systems, now eerily quiet. "But what can we do, Captain?" another officer asked, his voice wavering. Reza's eyes narrowed. "You've seen what we've been through. How many times did we think we were beaten? How many times did we think it was over? This isn't different. Not yet. I don't believe we have time for another last stand, Captain," Pierce said, her voice calm but firm. "The data from the other colonies tells us they're only getting stronger. The Terran forces are already stretched too thin." Reza moved, his boots clicking against the cold floor as he crossed the room, his gaze fixed ahead. He wasn't about to give in to fear, and he wasn't about to let them either. He stopped in front of the room's large strategic map, his fingers tracing the glowing lines of the map of Earth, now mostly occupied by alien forces. His mind whirred calculating, but his focus was on one thing, one unshakable truth. "We're not dead yet," Reza said, voice low and dangerous. "If there's one thing I know, it's that humanity doesn't die easily. We've been counted out too many times. And every time, we came back. We always come back." The room fell silent as the gravity of his words settled in. The map displayed the locations of the alien forces, scattered across the globe. It wasn't just an invasion. It was a slow encroachment. But each inch the aliens took, humanity fought tooth and nail to keep. Reza turned to Pierce. "We need to hit them where it hurts. Fast, brutal, no mercy. Our resources are dwindling, but we have one thing they don't." "And what's that?" Pierce asked. "Us," Reza said, locking eyes with her. "You can throw all the tech and firepower at them, but when you're up against humanity, really up against us, it's a whole other fight." Pierce studied him for a long moment. Then she spoke, her voice cold but resolute. "Do you have a plan, Captain?" Reza didn't flinch. His expression hardened. "I do. Hours later, Reza was alone in his quarters, staring at the map projected on his desk. The alien fleet was moving closer to the planet's capital. Time was running out. A chime echoed through the room, pulling him from his thoughts. He activated the comms. "Reza!" came a voice from the screen. It was his old friend, Lieutenant Grace Holt, a war strategist in her own right, who had fought alongside him for years. "You look like you've seen a ghost." Reza smirked. "You could say that. But I've been worse, Grace. What's the status on your end?" She hesitated for a moment before speaking. "They're holding the line, but not for long. We don't have enough men to keep up with the aliens' numbers. They're smarter than they look." "Not smarter than us," Reza replied, leaning forward, the glint of determination in his eyes. "I've got something. It's risky, but it's our best shot." "What are you thinking?" Grace asked, her voice low, knowing this wasn't going to be an easy solution. Reza's lips tightened into a grim line. "We break their command center. They want us to bow down, but we'll make them regret that." Grace nodded, understanding the plan instantly. "It's a hell of a gamble. But it's the only one left." "Exactly," Reza said. "We'll show them what humanity is capable of when pushed too far." As the transmission ended, Reza stared at the screen, his resolve hardening. They were no longer playing defense. Humanity had been backed into a corner. But if there was one thing the aliens didn't understand, it was that humanity was never more dangerous than when they were fighting for their lives. The war was just beginning. And Reza Albright was going to make sure humanity's name would echo across the stars, no matter the cost. The moonless night was eerily silent, the kind of silence that gnawed at your soul. A black sky stretched endlessly above, thick with tension, broken only by the flickering glow of distant explosions. Reza Albright stood at the edge of the battlefield, watching the alien forces amass in the distance. The air was heavy with the stench of burning cities and the acrid tang of ozone. Above them, the massive motherships hung like dark gods, silent, ominous, ever watchful. His heart pounded in his chest, adrenaline pumping through his veins as he reviewed the tactical map projected on his wrist. The plan was simple in theory. The alien command center was vulnerable. They'd been gathering intel for weeks, and Reza was convinced the heart of the enemy's strategy could be destroyed if they hit fast and hard. But in his gut, Reza knew that they were running out of time. Their resources were limited, and if they didn't act now, it would be too late. "Captain, we've got a problem," came the voice of Grace Holt over his comm. Reza didn't turn as he replied. "Spit it out." "We're being tracked," Grace said, her tone tense. "We've lost a few of our support ships on the outer perimeter. The aliens are already on to us. We've got maybe an hour before they engage the full fleet." Reza's jaw clenched, his mind racing. Their covert insertion mission was no longer covert. The element of surprise was gone. That left them with only one option: strike hard and strike fast. They couldn't afford to wait. His eyes flicked to the darkened skies, the silhouettes of the enemy ships looming larger, a gathering storm. "Get the men into position," he said, voice low but resolute. "We're going in. We don't wait for the cavalry, we make our own." The team moved like shadows, crouching low in the craggy, barren landscape. Their boots crunched against the dust as they made their way toward the alien command center. Each step felt like it could be their last, but Reza didn't hesitate. His mind was clear, focused solely on the mission. This wasn't just about survival anymore. It was about sending a message, a declaration that humanity would never fall to these invaders. Reza was flanked by his most trusted team members, Grace Holt, the tactician, whose sharp mind could read a battlefield like a book, and Sergeant Thomas Blake, the squad's heavy weapons specialist, whose enthusiasm was only rivaled by his firepower. Behind them, a dozen soldiers followed, moving quickly but cautiously. "Keep your heads down," Reza instructed, his voice calm but firm. "We hit fast. We hit hard." They neared the edge of the alien facility, the metallic structure rising like a monolithic sentinel. A soft hum emanated from within, the rhythmic pulse of the alien technology that powered the command center. Reza's eyes scanned the perimeter, an intricate network of defenses, but nothing they couldn't handle. Or so he hoped. Ready? Reza asked, turning to Grace. She gave a grim nod. Let's do this. With a signal, the squad spread out, moving into position. Blake, carrying the heaviest of the gear, took point, his weapon raised. The others fanned out behind him, covering every angle. The quiet was maddening, the calm before the storm. Reza's calm crackled to life again. Captain, we've got incoming. 2 enemy fighters breaking through the atmosphere. We've got 10 minutes at best. Damn it, Reza muttered under his breath. They didn't have the luxury of time. He gave the signal to proceed. Blake fired first, a deafening roar of gunfire as the massive doors to the command center buckled under the impact. The explosion sent a ripple through the air, dust and debris raining down like a storm. The team rushed forward, weapons raised, adrenaline surging through their veins. Inside, the atmosphere was sterile, alien, and quiet, a stark contrast to the chaos outside. Massive holographic screens flickered with streams of data that made no sense to them, but Reza knew one thing: this was the heart of the operation. Every alien decision, every strategy, flowed from here. Clear the room, Reza ordered, his voice sharp. Blake took the lead again, clearing the room with precise bursts of fire. But as the doors slammed open, Reza's eyes widened. Something was wrong. The walls were covered in strange symbols, patterns that pulsed like living things. The command center was far more advanced than they'd anticipated. Captain, there's something off about this, Grace said, her voice low as she surveyed the room. Reza nodded but said nothing. He had a bad feeling in his gut. Something was wrong, but he couldn't afford to stop now. The mission had to continue. At the far side of the room, a massive terminal hummed with a low energy. Reza approached it, ignoring the alien symbols that seemed to swirl around him. He inserted the data spike into the console. The screen blinked and shifted. It was trying to reject the signal. Come on, Reza muttered, his fingers flying over the terminal's interface. The seconds ticked by, each one like an eternity. Captain, Blake's voice interrupted, urgent. We've got company. Reza didn't look up. He could hear the sounds of boots marching, the unmistakable click of alien exoskeletons against metal flooring. They were coming. Not yet, Reza whispered. He was so close. Another scream of gunfire echoed through the hall. The doors at the far end of the room blew open, revealing a group of alien soldiers, their glowing eyes fixed on Reza and his squad. They were fast, lethal, and relentless. Go! Reza shouted. Blake was already firing, his massive weapon spitting hot lead into the alien ranks. Reza turned back to the terminal, his mind focused solely on getting the data they needed. He could hear the explosions, feel the heat of battle, but everything else was secondary to the mission. Captain? Grace's voice rang out in panic. We're surrounded! Reza's eyes locked onto the data spike, a single strand of hope in a rapidly closing noose. And then it happened. The data downloaded, just as the first of the aliens slammed into the squad's perimeter. Reza yanked the spike out, and in that instant, everything exploded into chaos. The squad was pinned down, surrounded by an unrelenting alien force. Reza's heart raced, the weight of the situation sinking in. They had what they came for, but now they had to get out. Blake, cover me! Reza barked. Blake's weapon roared to life once more, cutting down alien after alien, but the numbers were overwhelming. Grace, move! Reza shouted. We go now. Now! But as he turned to make his escape, his comms crackled again. The voice was familiar, but the words sent a chill down his spine. Reza, it's too late. They know everything. It's a trap. Reza's mind raced. The voice on the comm was unmistakable. It was Commander Pierce. And what she had said hit him like a punch to the gut. It's a trap. The mission had gone from a tactical strike to a desperate struggle for survival. Everything they had planned, every move they had made, was suddenly in question. Everyone, keep moving! Reza barked, his voice laced with urgency. His pulse throbbed in his ears as he pushed his team toward the exit, Blake's heavy weapon laying down suppressive fire behind them. The squad moved as one, but the weight of the situation was clear. The aliens had anticipated their every move, and now they were closing in. The flickering lights in the command center cast strange, jagged shadows that danced like specters, amplifying the sense of being trapped. "Captain?" Grace's voice was tight with panic. "We're not going to make it out of here. We need an extraction, now." Reza didn't hesitate. He knew the stakes. His mind raced through every option, every possibility. He could feel the walls closing in. The mission wasn't over yet, but survival wasn't guaranteed anymore. "I've got an idea. Head to the secondary exit," he ordered, but his voice barely masked the tension beneath. "Blake, cover the rear. Everyone else, keep moving." The squad moved toward the secondary exit, their steps quick but cautious. As they neared the door, an alien burst through the side corridor, its massive form blocking their path. The squad scattered instinctively, diving for cover. "Hold your fire!" Reza shouted, realizing that a full-on firefight would only make their situation worse. They couldn't afford to waste ammunition or energy. "We need to move, now!" Grace's eyes met his, full of resolve. She nodded. They had no choice. Blake fired first, a powerful blast that knocked the alien back, buying them a moment of precious time. The squad scrambled through the exit, into the depths of the alien compound. The sounds of the battle echoed through the hallways, but they didn't stop. They couldn't. Reza's comms buzzed again, and he barely spared a glance at it. The voice of Commander Pierce blared through the speaker. "Reza, I've been monitoring the situation. You've triggered their secondary defense system. They've locked down the entire sector. You need to get out, now." "I know," Reza muttered under his breath. The weight of his next words sat heavily in his chest. "We're not going to make it, Pierce. I need you to tell the Council." "No," she interrupted, her voice steely. "You're not dying today. I'll get you out of this, Reza. Hold tight." Reza didn't respond. There was no time for thanks, no time for anything but survival. The squad moved deeper into the compound, pushing through corridors lined with strange, glowing alien symbols. The air was thick with a sense of dread, a heavy pulse that seemed to vibrate in the walls. Blake stopped suddenly, his hand raised in a silent command. "Something's wrong." Reza's heart skipped a beat. He turned to find Blake staring down the narrow corridor. There was a shadow at the far end. The air felt heavier than before, like something was coming. "We're not alone," Blake muttered. Before Reza could respond, the hallway lit up in a burst of unnatural light. The alien soldiers materialized from the shadows, their sleek, armored bodies moving with predatory grace. A cold shiver ran down Reza's spine as he realized they were facing something worse than they had anticipated. This wasn't just a trap. It was a calculated ambush. "We fight," Reza growled. "Get to cover, now!" The squad sprang into action, the cacophony of battle exploding around them. Gunfire rang out, echoing off the metallic walls as Reza's soldiers fought tooth and nail to hold the line. But the aliens were relentless, closing in from all sides. Reza's pulse quickened as he scanned the scene. They were surrounded. Blake fired his weapon, the massive explosive rounds tearing into the advancing alien soldiers. Grace moved with precision, picking off targets with deadly accuracy. But for every alien that fell, two more took its place. The walls felt like they were closing in, the pressure mounting with every second. Then Reza saw it. Across the room, on a raised platform, the leader of the alien soldiers stood, his form sleek and imposing, his eyes glowing with a malevolent intensity. Reza recognized the insignia on his armor. This was their commander. Without thinking, Reza bolted forward, breaking from the fight. He ran, dodging gunfire, feeling the heat of the battle at his back. His sole focus was on the alien leader, who watched him with an almost smug indifference. Reza's heart pounded as he neared the platform. The alien commander raised his weapon, and just as he fired, Reza launched himself forward, tackling the alien to the ground. They crashed to the floor, Reza's fists pounding into the alien's face, the metal of the commander's armor screeching under the force. The commander howled, throwing Reza off, but Reza was already moving again. His hand found a blade, a curved, serrated edge that gleamed under the dim light. With a roar, Reza drove the blade into the commander's side, twisting it until the alien's screech echoed through the hall. For a moment, everything stopped. The squad kept fighting, but the alien leader's death sent shockwaves through the enemy forces. Their formation faltered, their tactical advantage slipping as Reza stood, panting, the blood of his enemy dripping from his blade. "Now!" Reza shouted, and his squad leaped into action. Blake's heavy weapon roared, cutting down the remaining alien soldiers. Grace moved like a blur, precise and lethal. They made their way through the chaos, pushing forward with newfound resolve. Reza wiped the blood from his face, his hands shaking. They were still alive. But the war was far from over. They'd struck a blow, yes, but the price had been high. As they made their way toward the exit, Reza looked over his shoulder, the distant sound of reinforcements growing louder. His heart weighed heavy with the knowledge that the battle for Earth was just beginning. The screen of his calm flickered to life again, and Pierce's voice came through, relieved, but still stern. "Reza, you did it. You bought us time. But this isn't over." Reza's reply was simple. "We'll be ready." And as he and his team emerged from the compound, the sky above them darkened with the ships of the invading force. The battle for Earth was just beginning, but humanity was ready to fight, no matter the cost. The sky above was a bruised canvas of swirling reds and purples, the atmosphere still thick with the heat of battle. Reza stood on the battlefield, his eyes scanning the horizon where the alien fleet now loomed in full force. The massive ships hung like dark, oppressive gods over a wounded Earth, their alien war machines glistening ominously under the fading sunlight. The war was far from over, but humanity had just proven its tenacity. The mission had been a desperate gamble, but Reza knew they had just bought themselves a brief window of hope. But hope was a fragile thing, and it had never been more perilous than in this moment. The squad had regrouped after the ambush. They'd taken heavy losses, some had fallen, others were gravely wounded, but they had made it out. They had the intel they needed. It was a small victory, but a victory nonetheless. The alien commander's death had disrupted their forces, thrown them into disarray. Yet, that chaos wouldn't last long. The aliens were ruthless, calculating. They wouldn't stay disoriented for long. Reza stood tall, his armor torn, his face smeared with the grime and blood of battle. He felt the weight of every fallen comrade, every sacrifice that had brought them to this point. This wasn't just about survival anymore. It was about proving to the galaxy that humanity would never bow down. "We've bought some time," Reza said, his voice hoarse but steady as he turned to face his squad. The others gathered around him, their expressions a mix of exhaustion and determination. Blake, his massive weapon slung over his shoulder, gave a heavy nod. "But not much. We need to hit them again, Captain. They won't wait forever." Reza's eyes hardened. The distant rumble of alien engines could be heard now, the first wave of reinforcements entering Earth's atmosphere. They didn't have much time. His mind whirred, calculating, weighing their options. He had one last move left, a final strike. "There's one more target," Reza said, his gaze fixed on the horizon. "If we take down their fleet's central node, we cripple their control. We've got one shot at this. We hit fast, hit hard, and make them regret underestimating us." Grace stepped forward, her expression grim. "You're not saying we go after the flagship, are you?" Reza met her eyes, his expression unwavering. "We don't have a choice. If we don't, they'll burn this planet to the ground. We take out their flagship, we take out their command, their leadership. It's our best shot." Grace's lips pressed together, her sharp mind already weighing the dangers. "It's suicide. The flagship will be heavily defended, an entire fleet protecting it." Reza's hand clenched into a fist. "We don't have time for hesitation. We fight or we die. No middle ground." Blake chuckled darkly, his hands tightening around his weapon. Hell of a way to go down, huh? Reza didn't respond. Instead, he turned to his team, his gaze sweeping over them. They were battered, bruised, but still standing. They were humanity's last hope in this war. Reza knew this would be their final stand. There was no turning back now. Prepare for the final assault, he said. We move out in 10 minutes. If we're going down fighting. The assault on the alien flagship was a suicide mission, but Reza and his team didn't flinch. As their shuttle streaked toward the massive alien vessel, the enormity of the task ahead of them became all too clear. The flagship, surrounded by an array of alien warships, was an impenetrable fortress in space. Its surface was dotted with weapons turrets and shield generators, each one capable of devastating any force that came close. But Reza wasn't concerned with that right now. What mattered was the objective. They landed with precision, their shuttle skidding across the flagship's hull, its metal surface vibrating beneath their feet. The team disembarked quickly, weapons raised, and immediately took cover behind the massive structures that jutted out from the flagship's exterior. They didn't have much time. Blake, cover our 6, Reza commanded, his eyes scanning the surroundings. Grace, you're with me. We moved to the core control room. The rest of you, set up explosives along the perimeter. We need this place to burn. Grace's expression was grim, but she nodded. Understood. The rest of the squad split off, their footsteps echoing as they moved to their assigned positions. Reza and Grace led the charge, ducking behind cover as the first wave of alien defenders appeared in the distance, their gleaming weapons drawn. Stay sharp, Reza muttered, his fingers twitching toward his gun. They know we're here. Blake's voice came over the comm, deep and steady. I've got your backs. Keep moving. The squad pushed forward with relentless determination, firing at the aliens as they advanced. The air was thick with the stench of ionized metal and the roar of battle. Reza's pulse quickened, but his focus never wavered. This was the moment they had trained for, the moment where humanity either stood tall or crumbled to dust. They reached the core control room's entrance. Reza held up a fist, signaling for the squad to halt. He took a deep breath, then nodded to Grace. She was already at the terminal, hacking into the control systems with precision. Her fingers flew across the holographic interface, bypassing alien security protocols in a matter of seconds. Almost there, Grace said, her voice low. We've got about 2 minutes before the alien fleet knows what we're up to. Reza nodded, his eyes darting to the approaching wave of alien soldiers. Blake, cover us. Don't let them get too close. Blake's weapon roared again, heavy rounds ripping through the air, cutting down the advancing aliens. But even as he held the line, Reza knew time was running out. They had to finish this. Now. With a final tap, Grace disabled the core's shield defenses. The core room hummed with energy as the alien technology began to power down. Reza's heart raced. Now, Grace! The explosives, set in key locations throughout the flagship, were primed. The countdown began. Let's move! Reza shouted, grabbing Grace by the arm and pulling her toward the exit. They raced through the corridors, the ship groaning around them as the core reactor began to destabilize. Explosions rocked the walls, and the ground trembled beneath their feet. The last thing Reza saw before he and his squad escaped into the shuttle was the alien flagship erupting in a massive fireball, the shockwave reverberating through space. It was over. The fleet was crippled. The aliens were thrown into chaos. As they sped away from the wreckage, Reza leaned back, exhaling slowly. He didn't need to say anything. The mission had been a success, but the cost had been high. Many of his team were gone. Humanity had paid a steep price. But in that moment, Reza knew one thing for sure: Earth wasn't finished yet. And neither was humanity. They had won the first battle, but the war was far from over.